can't run, can't hide. The stars are humming, whispering my name, change is coming. I'm feeling that flame, blossom with the cosmos, let it flow. Intention set, now watch them grow.
Aloha, my friends and family. Big energy and a huge change of the seasons as we approach the new moon, solar eclipse, and the equinox the very next day. Lotus dawn here with Blossom with the Stars, True the Stars, sidereal astrology. And we are standing at a pivotal point in the entire year as we approach the equinox. Most people know the equinox as the beginning of the autumn. However, I follow a system called the Celtic Calendar. And in the Celtic Calendar, the autumnal equinox or the summer equinox, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, is actually the high point or midpoint of autumn, and winter actually begins on November 1st. So it's a very different way of noticing the seasons, and I've noticed that it's much more accurate. When you follow the Celtic calendar, spring actually begins February 8th. The summer season begins in May, and autumn begins in August. And so that really changes the rhythm of the seasons. And I've noticed it gives you a lot longer for each season because you're actually starting it at the actual time it begins. So that said, the energy on this earth has been very intense for so many people in the last several weeks. And I wanted to speak to that and share some of the astrological information that may help you have a greater understanding of why the energy has felt so emotional, right? Why you might be in your feels and why you might be finding it more challenging to get things done or to move forwards and what's going on with that. Number one, we currently have about 5 planets retrograde. And when a planet is retrograde, you guys have probably heard of Mercury retrograde. It causes us to become, one, more internal. Two, the universe is asking us to look more within. Three, we're being asked to deal with things from the past that we have not dealt with yet. Four, we're being given this as not a challenge or to suffer, but as an opportunity. Retrograde periods are times that we're asked to go within. We are asked to kind of check in, if you will. And it's very interesting because every single year at this time, something happens, which are that about between 5 and 8 planets go retrograde. And I was jokingly talking to Michael, I said, I call it the autumnal pileup because everyone freaks out and they don't know what's going on, why the energies feel so stuck or sticky or dense. And what's the reason for this? Well, what a retrograde planet is doing for us individually and collectively is saying, okay, you've been moving forwards, right, for this whole year of 2025. Where are you at? Where are you going? What do you want? Right? What do you want? And a lot of us are going so fast and so furiously forwards, we forget to check back in. We forget to assess our situation. We forget to see, where am I at and where do I want to go? And so a retrograde period is an opportunity from the universe to get more clear on who you are, where you're at, and where you're going. But it can be a little confusing if all of a sudden everything kind of slows down in your life and you're going, well, what's going on? Why is this happening? Okay, so we can learn more about what the retrograde period is asking us to dive into by looking at the planets that are retrograde. And so, like I said, we have about 5 of them, which is a lot. And so let's take a look. And most of them are in one sign. They're in a water sign. They're in the sign of Pisces. Pisces is very emotional, very intuitive. It is not logical. It is not rational. It is not about, you know, what we think. It's about how we feel. And so when so many planets go retrograde in a sign that's about our feelings and our emotions and what we feel, we can sometimes find it almost more challenging because we can't logically or rationally understand with our minds what's going on. And so that can cause fear, that can cause confusion, that can cause sadness and grief. And so let's look into what sign these planets are actually in. Okay, so I'm going to go to the actual sky, and this is what I love, love, love about True to the Stars sidereal astrology is that we can look at the actual sky and find out what's happening. Whereas mainstream astrology is based on where the stars were 2,000 years ago is no longer accurate to the actual sky. This system gives us the information. If we had a telescope and we were to go look up at the planetary bodies, this is what we would see. And so what we have going on, and you can't see most of the planets because they're small, is we have Pisces, the sign of the two fish, one fish representing us sort of swimming through life in this material reality, you know, the bills we have to pay and our family and our home and our daily life. And then the other fish represents our dreams, represents our imagination, represents our ability to connect to something higher, to connect to spiritual energy, to meditate, right? So meditation and yoga and qigong are all really great ways to connect to the spiritual energy of Pisces. Also, art, music, dance, journaling, writing stories, making movies, making films. And so we have, let's see, many planets retrograde. Actually, I want to show you first the chart so you can see those planets retrograde for yourself first. Okay, so here we have the chart of today, and right here is Saturn. Okay, Saturn is all about, do they say anything about what it's all about? Saturn and Pisces, let's see. Saturn is all about structure. It's all about discipline. It's all about the government, business. Saturn is the bones and the teeth. And so when Saturn is in Pisces and it's retrograde, goodness, it's first of all going to deal with structure. It's second of all going to deal with discipline. And in the sign of Pisces, related to our dreams, our creativity, our connection to spiritual energy, to God, to our spiritual path, right? Are we meditating daily? Are we connecting in with our inner world? It can relate to our dreams. Are we paying attention to our dreams, both the ones we have at night and the ones that we have during the daytime when we want to focus on what we want to create in our life? What about our dreams from childhood? And so when Saturn, structure, discipline in Pisces, our dreams and imagination, goes retrograde, it can mean that our dreams from the past, our creative energies or spiritual practices that we did in the past, or ideas we had about doing them, we may be suddenly revisiting, reviewing, reanalyzing, reintegrating, rejuvenating that connection because we may have felt disconnected, or we may have been ignoring our dreams or ignoring our imagination or ignoring our spiritual path. And so when the universe causes a planet to go retrograde, we're given an opportunity to kind of look back and see, is there anything we could do better? On a collective level, it can mean that issues around spirituality and religion might be coming up in the government, might be coming up between countries, right? And they might be getting disciplined around their behaviors towards religion or spirituality. Now, we also have Neptune, which is the planet of dreams, conjunct Saturn in Pisces. And it's so interesting because Neptune actually is the planet that rules the sign of Pisces. So this is a very important planet related to Pisces, and it's in Pisces. And when that happens, it's very, very, very powerful. What that can mean is that our dreams become a huge part of this equation. Conjunct Saturn, the discipline and the structure to make them happen. Retrograde of the past, meaning that what dreams have you given up on? What dreams did you forget about? What dreams do you have that will require hard work, effort, discipline, and structure to achieve? Now is a time to remember them and decide, do I want to keep them or am I going to let them go? Because we are coming upon the new moon solar eclipse on Sunday. And it's going to be such a powerful eclipse because new moons generally relate to setting intentions. They're the most powerful time of the lunar cycle to set intentions. Now, when you add in the power of a solar eclipse, guess what? My camera is so funny. The energy is activated and it is exaggerated and expanded to cover a 6-month period. So typically a new moon affects the period from the new moon to the full moon, which is 2 weeks. And we say, okay, what intention do you want to set from the new moon to the full moon? That's a really great cycle to work on. But when you add in a new moon eclipse, what does that do? The eclipse are like cosmic check-in points, cosmic bookends, if you will, for us to kind of see where we're at in our lives. And there's 4 per year. They start off in the spring, typically with a lunar eclipse. And the lunar eclipse is the completion of what got started earlier at the new moon solar eclipse that was happening in the autumn of 2025, right? So this coming new moon solar eclipse happening September 21st is about setting intentions for the next 6 months that will come into fruition at, let's see here, there we go, at the next solar eclipse, or I'm sorry, the lunar eclipse, which is occurring February 2026. So this coming new moon solar eclipse is literally setting the tone and the energy for setting intentions for the next 6 months that will come to fruition at the next full moon lunar eclipse in February of 2026. So this is a very powerful time. You might be feeling like, okay, I'm overwhelmed by all of the retrograde planets. They're happening for a reason. They're happening to help slow you down so that you can get in touch with and in tune with what it is you want to create. Because we are creators. And sometimes we get so busy, we forget to create. And so the universe will bring in retrograde planets every year at the autumn to help remind us to slow down, to take some time to go within. And so if you're feeling anxious or frantic or things aren't moving forwards at the speed you're anticipating, you could be experiencing those retrograde planets, which is the universe's way of offering you an opportunity to stop and smell the flowers and to get in touch with yourself, to get in touch with what you want to create, and to get in touch with where you're going. Because sometimes we think we're on the right track, but we really need to take a look. We really need to assess. We really need to tune in. What is the feeling with where I'm going? Is this in alignment? Is this in tune with who I am? Or is there something I'm not paying attention to? It can be a really powerful time to set new intentions, to get more clear on what you do want. It can be a very powerful time to figure things out in your life, get more focused on where you're going. So please feel free to share in the comments if you have any questions for me about this upcoming new moon solar eclipse. It's so powerful, right, for setting intentions and knowing what the energy is for this eclipse that Michael and I, my partner, who's a super master at energy clearing practitioner, we've decided to put together an event for Saturday, September 20th to dive into the energies of this upcoming new moon solar eclipse and to clear any blockages that we may have collectively, individually around moving forwards with this energy. It's a pretty intensive eclipse because usually the energy of the new moon eclipse is lined up with the destiny point, which is forward motion, going forwards. But this new moon solar eclipse is lined up with the south node, which is the past. And so there's a good chance that while we are setting new moon intentions for the next 6 months of what we want to create, there's a really good chance that we're also over the next 6 months going to be resolving, finishing, and completing past cycles, especially with all of the retrograde planets that we currently have. So, which planets are retrograde? Saturn, the planet of discipline and structure. Neptune, the planet of dreams, imagination, can be illusion or fantasy. It can also be theater, movies. It can be anything we do that touches in with our imagination, like art, music, dance, writing, channeling, psychic channeling, energy healing, energy clearing. It's powerful, powerful energy. Then we also have Chiron, the Wounded Healer, in Pisces and retrograde. And that's one of the big ones. That's one of the most challenging ones. In fact, it's actually been opposite Mars, which is the planet of aggression, action. It's the planet of leadership. And incidentally, when Charlie Kirk got shot, was the one of the days that Mars was actually opposite Chiron, the Wounded Healer, which was just so wild to witness as an astrologer. And this happens again and again, where this chart and the planetary alignments and then what happens in the world are very, very much make a lot of sense for why they're happening. Okay. And so you might be asking, okay, Lotus, well, what is happening then? Well, one thing is that all of these retrograde planets is causing a slowdown energetically. And most people think, oh no, a slowdown is bad, right? So I want to invite you to reframe this, to rephrase this, and realize that retrograde is an opportunity. Retrograde is an opportunity to redo, to revisit, to rethink, to re-examine, to rejuvenate, to regenerate, to reactivate, so you can let go of things that are no longer serving you. So it's a good time to clean. It's a good time to organize. It's also a good time to assess what is working for you in your life and what might not be working for you in your life. It's a good time to let go of things from the past. And it's a good time to figure out, what do I really want, and get clear on your path and where you're going. And that's especially true with this upcoming new moon solar eclipse that will be happening in Virgo. So let's take a look at the current sky. You know, one of the things that's really interesting, I told you that we're having these retrograde planets and they're in Pisces, which is the sign of spirituality, and it's the sign of this sort of ephemeral, watery, emotional energy. So people might feel a little bit lost in their emotions. Added to that, we have two planetary oppositions, which are huge energy. We have the sun, which is how we shine. It's our purpose. It's our spiritual energy. And we have Mercury, the planet of communication, opposite Saturn and Neptune, the two retrograde planets of the spiritual energy. So, Lotus, what would that mean? Well, let me show you. So we're going to go take a look at where the sun is currently located now. And I love hearing your stories. I love hearing what's happening in your life. So please feel free to comment and share what you're noticing with the energetics. If you have any questions for me as an astrologer about what's happening, it's really powerful to get a chart reading because then I can look at your chart and I can tell you where the activations are landing. And it's different for everyone. So I'm giving you this basic reading for the collective of what's happening. But when you get an individual chart reading, your chart is divided into 12 sections, and these 12 sections represent 12 areas and arenas of your life. For instance, your career, your home, your family, your finances, your love life, relationships, your purpose, transformation, travel, where you live. And you can look at any time and see what planetary energies are affecting which area of your life. And I'm always astonished, amazed at how accurate the readings are that I do with people and how much they align with what they're going through. For instance, this is kind of a challenging circumstance, but my mama broke her arm a couple years back. And she's like, Lotus, look at my chart. Tell me what was happening. She, of course, taught me astrology. So that was quite an honor to have her ask me. Um, and she said, and I looked, and her sun was actually conjunct Saturn. So Saturn was transiting in the sky and it conjuncted her sun. And Saturn is the planet of the bone system. And she broke her arm at that time. So Saturn is a really tricky planet. You want to know where it's at in your chart at all times, so you know what in your life is really a challenge or a lesson or something that you're really working on. And so having regular weekly or monthly readings can be super beneficial because they say millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. And that's because astrology gives you the bird's eye view to have a better sense of what's happening. So let me take you in and show you a little bit more about the current energetics of what is happening right now, because it's fairly intense. One thing that's really big right now is that our sun, the sun, right, which represents our soul, which represents our purpose, which represents shining, just changed signs. And so for the last month, the sun has been shining in Leo, the constellation of Leo. And that's a fire sign. It's all about being very external, being very active, really sharing who you are with the world. It's the sign of kings and queens, and it's about courage and bravery and really sharing your roar with the world. But the sun has moved out of Leo, which is kind of a quieter time for the sun, and into Virgo. Virgo is the largest constellation. It takes 47 to 49 days for the sun to move through her. You can see how large of a constellation she is. Virgo is known as the earth goddess. I often call her the handmaiden to the earth, because Virgo people, Virgo energy is all about being in service to helping others. It's all about being that guide of healing, that guide of the physical body, really helping other people to come into alignment with their physicality to make sure they have everything that they need, right? So people with a lot of Virgo, they make the best doctors, the best nurses, the best nutritionists, physical body therapists, yoga teachers, coaches, people who really help and want to help others, veterinarians, people who work with animals, people who work with plants. And so I call it the handmaiden of the earth because I think of Virgo as being the hands of the earth mother coming through us, helping others, right? Helping others to heal, helping other people, helping others to feel good, to live, to flourish. It's also the sign of the harvest. And so this is a really big time of the year for the harvest, when all the grapes and the apples and the pomegranates and the abundance of the earth is ready to be harvested. And so Virgo is very good at taking the harvest, gathering the harvest, and then weighing it and delineating and separating the wheat from the chaff. So Virgo is a very analytical time where we're taking in all of the information of this previous year. We are organizing it, we are cleaning, we are sorting, sifting, separating the good from the bad, what we liked from what we didn't like. As we go into the winter, we're in preparing mode for what's coming next. In our society, we get so separated from the cycles and seasons of the earth, and yet those are so much a part of our life, and we are so connected to them. And as we approach the equinox, it's a really good time to take some time out to go out into nature, right? Virgo, being the handmaiden of the earth, is a really good time to go out into nature, to connect to the earth, to gather your crops, both physically and metaphorically, of your life. Gather the fruits of your labors. Gather all the good things that you have done. Sort them, separate, organize, get them aligned. Virgo is so much about alignment, organization, getting your ducks in a row, getting all your details in alignment. And so if your life has felt stagnant or like it's not moving forwards, you may need to clean, you may need to organize, you may need to go through old paperwork and get more clarity on what you're doing and where you're going. And right now, the sun is combust Mercury in Virgo. And what does that mean? If you're like, what does that mean, Lotus? Well, combust means when the sun is very, very close to Mercury, and the sun is a very, very hot planet. And the planets that get too close to her can kind of burn up. Okay, so I want to just show you that. So here is the sun in Mercury. Sorry for that little journey. And sometimes it really has fun. Sometimes I'm curious what it's doing. Okay, there we go. So there's the sun, 2 degrees of Virgo. It just entered. It's currently conjunct the south node of the moon, which means we're still dealing with past karma. That's another reason the energy is heavy. We're dealing with the past karma of being in Leo, which is performance, which can be self-centeredness. And I've really gotten the sense that we could be dealing with past lives where we were famous, where we were wealthy, we were kings or queens, and maybe we lost that. Maybe we had to go through some type of battle or challenge. And so there's this sort of pain that we're healing in the collective around our greatness, and also not putting our greatness at the expense of others, but instead learning how to integrate our greatness into the context of the community, of the tribe, and of everyone working together. So as I was saying, sun combust Mercury means that Mercury is very close to the sun right now. Luckily, she's not too close, so we might have actually moved out of combust, which is great, great news, which means that communication will be getting better. But if you notice the last days leading up to this, that communication might have been a little intense. You could have been having arguments, you could have been having challenges with your communication. Just know that that was partially because of the sun combust Mercury, which is now shifted. But what we are still dealing with, which is just so interesting how it's playing out, is that the sun and Mercury and Mars are all opposite 3 of the retrograde planets. So Sun and Mercury up there in Virgo are completely opposite. And what does opposite mean? It means they're in like across the chart in the opposite sign. So if Virgo is an earth sign, all about grounding and the material world and the earth, and being very analytical and very clear and very rational and very organized, then Pisces, which is directly opposite it down here, where we have these 4 retrograde planets, is a water sign that's all about letting go of your material worries, surrendering into the oneness. It's about our spiritual flow. And so we have the Sun and Mercury in Virgo, being analytical, being organized, being punctual, being detail oriented, the planet of communication, all about how we talk, how we communicate. Opposite Saturn, which is discipline and structure in spirituality, and Neptune, which is our dreams. So notice, what does that mean? It means that our soul self that's wanting to get clear and organized has a little challenge with our spiritual self, Saturn, sort of a tug of war, if you will, between the mind and the spirit, between what you think you should be doing and what your spiritual needs are. So what might that look like? Virgo, Sun in Virgo wants to get the job done. It wants to accomplish things. It wants to be of service and help people. Okay, what does Saturn and Pisces want? Saturn wants you to be disciplined, Pisces, with your spiritual practices. It wants you to take time away to go within. Sun in Virgo wants you to work and take action and go out. And so having those two planets, Sun and Mercury in Virgo, how we shine and how we communicate, opposite Saturn and Neptune, how we structure and how we dream, means there's a tug of war in the collective between analysis, organization, getting things done, and then this sort of need to sort of pause and dream. And so, how can we find a balance point between our responsibilities, helping other people, serving others, and giving time to nourish and spend time with our imagination, our dreams, our spiritual life, right? So you might be like, I feel so busy, I don't have time to rest, right? I'm so busy with work, I don't have time to go within. But the Saturn in Pisces is saying, guess what? You make time or I will make you. That's kind of how Saturn operates. And so Saturn can stand up to the sun. You can think of the sun energy as like the joy of a child who loves to express themselves, to sing and play and dance. It's that freedom of like, yes, I am me. I'm here to shine. And then Saturn is like the wise grandfather who comes in and it says to that beautiful, happy child who's been playing dress up all morning, has chocolate smeared all over their face, has a mess all over their room, and is jumping up and down and running into walls. And that grandfather Saturn comes in and says, hey, I need you to go wash your face. I need you to get dressed. I need you to go to bed, right? Saturn is that disciplinary structure. Now, when Saturn is in Pisces, it gets a little interesting because what is that child, the Sun in Virgo child doing, and what is that grandfather doing? So in this example, the Sun in Virgo would be like a child who's very organized and clean and is working very hard and is getting all their toys lined up in a nice row and everything's neat, everything's organized, and they're getting ready to go help the child next door with their projects. And then in comes Saturn, Grandpa Saturn in Pisces. And Grandpa Saturn in Pisces says, oh, I can see you're very busy and you're getting so much accomplished. But have you sat down and talked to God today? Have you sat down and said your prayers? Have you dreamed your dreams of what you want in your life? Are you in touch with the spiritual as well as the material? And that little child, of course, might be like, whoa, I'm busy, Grandpa. But Grandpa Saturn, right, is Grandpa. You got to kind of listen to Grandpa, right? So that's what's happening is we're kind of being asked to discipline our desire to work and give and serve with our spiritual practices, with our dreams, with our imagination, and to make those dreams real, to put the time, work, and effort into our dreams and not just give everything to other people, right? So it's important to give to yourself right now, to rejuvenate, to fill yourself up. And that leads me to this third challenging aspect between Chiron and Mars. And right when this aspect really kicked in was the day that Charlie Kirk got shot. And I was in total shock. I don't care what side of the politics you're on. A human life is a human life. And man, was that a challenging day. But I allowed myself to feel sadness, grief. I allowed myself to like go through it, and I prayed, and I felt lots of love and light coming through for us in the collective. Uh, Very powerful. And I looked up Charlie Kirk's chart because I was like, oh my God, what happened? And I saw the craziest thing, which actually isn't so crazy given how many times I've seen this astrology stuff be so on point. I saw that on the day of his death, Mars, which can be positive and negative depending, right? Its shadow side is anger, aggression, hostility. They call it the god of war. On the positive side, it represents our masculine energy. It represents our ability to take action. It can represent men, right? A masculine figure. And so on the day he got shot, his sun sign, so I looked up his birth date. His birthday was October 14th. His sun sign was exactly the same degrees, 29 degrees of Virgo as Mars. Of course, Mars has moved since then. It's been over a week. Um, yeah, it was a week today. Wow. Gosh, no wonder the energy is so intense today. Yeah. So on that day, his sun was exactly conjunct Mars, 29 degrees of Virgo, and directly opposite Mars. And today it's in like almost an exact opposition, which is polarity, which means tension, because you have two sides of the same coin, black and white, kind of with each other, and they both have a different way of viewing the world and doing things. So we have Chiron, the wounded healer, in Pisces. And so Chiron, the wounded healer, represents our greatest wound, right? Where we're unhealed. In our individual charts, it represents where is our deepest wound. In the collective chart, which is what we're looking at, where the planets are today, it represents the greatest wound of the collective. And when it's in the sign of Pisces, that greatest wound is typically related to spirituality. It's related to religion. It can be related to our connection with God. And I just thought this was so crazy because Charlie Kirk was so out there with his religious beliefs. I mean, talking on college campuses with the young people of the United States, all over the United States. And he was very, very much, very outwardly religious. And that's what Pisces can represent is religion. And Chiron is the wound. And so what does that mean? Well, what might we be carrying when it comes to religion as a wound in the collective? Well, if we look back in time, how many wars have been fought over religion? How many battles have been fought over religion? And so if we think about how, I don't know your view on past lives. I definitely have been seeing my past lives since I was a small child. And I've read studies of little children who could remember the details of their past lives down to the addresses of where they lived, the people that they knew, the names of the people that they knew. And this was then documented. There was a case of a little boy who could remember being a fighter pilot, and they tracked down he knew his address, he tracked down the address, he met his sister from that past life. He met the men who he flew with on the fighter jets. And it was just mind blowing, right? And so Chiron always represents past lives. They represents the greatest wound in our past lives as a collective. When it's in Pisces, it represents related to religion, related to God, related to spirituality. And so, working with Michael, one thing he's taught me as an energy clearing practitioner, and one thing I've been learning is that everything in life is a re-stimulation of a former trauma. And so if you're feeling exceptionally emotional, or if you're having a lot of pain or grief come up right now, well, that's understandable with Chiron in the sign of spirituality, religion, and connection to God, opposite Mars, which can be violence. And so what this could be, the pain that could be coming up could be any lifetime where we suffered pain, where we suffered persecution. We lost our family, we lost our friends because of our beliefs, because of our connection to God. And I think that is why what happened with Charlie Kirk has hit us so deeply, is it's not just what happened to him, it's what may have happened to us in other lifetimes. You know, where were we persecuted? Where did we speak our truth and then get silenced, right? And our voice and our throat and our ability to communicate. How many of us struggle with that? You know, I do energy work myself, and one of the biggest issues that I deal with is people feeling blocked in their throat chakra, blocked in their ability to speak. And if you look at Chiron being in Pisces, Chiron the Wounded Healer, all about spirituality and religion, what have we gone through in other lifetimes that caused us to shut down? You know, it had to be something very intense, right? Something traumatic. And so when something happens in the political public sphere that's as traumatic as what happened last week, it is going to bring up and re-stimulate in us our own stuff. So if you're really, really going through it and big stuff is coming up, I want to invite you to recognize that it could be a re-stimulation of something from the past, either from this lifetime, from a child, from your childhood, from your family. It could also be in the DNA. And if you're looking for support, you can comment below. Both my partner Michael and I do energy clearing work. It's absolutely phenomenal. I worked with a client just last week who had a serious injury to her leg. And within one session, we were able to reduce the pain almost just drastically. She was in such a happier place, and she was getting way more movement and mobility with her leg. So this stuff works. When we address the root core of an issue, it's typically not what we think. And when we finally address it, guess what? It can finally heal. So if you're feeling the intensity of this time, if you're feeling the intensity of what's happening, please know that you're not alone. And as we approach this new moon solar eclipse that's happening Sunday, September 21st, followed by the equinox, you know, I want to invite you to remember that for thousands of years, our ancestors have celebrated these turnings of the wheel of the cycles by coming together. And it's really important right now to come together, to unite, to build bridges with each other, because our true power is in our community. Our true power is on the family, the tribe of humanity that we are all composed of. And when it gets darkest is when we need all of us to shine our light even more and to connect more deeply with love and not with fear, because it is love that unites us, that connects us. It's who we are. So if you would like to join Michael and I to come together this Saturday, September 21st or 20th, the night before the eclipse, please leave a comment below so we can send you a link. This is going to be a powerful, powerful call where you can dive into the energetics of this upcoming new moon eclipse. And we can do energy work to clear all of the stuff that these energies are bringing up to the surface for all of us. We are all so sacred and special. We are truly loved by Source. We are pure love and light. Please remember this and know that anything that is not this love and this light is an illusion. It's like a cloud passing in front of the sun. It's not who you really are. And you can clear these things to feel better and brighter and live a happier, healthier life. So I send you all my love, and I wish you all a beautiful day getting ready for this new moon solar eclipse and the equinox. There are challenges, but they are opportunities in disguise to help us come into greater balance, to help us come into greater connection, and to help us come into greater service for this planet, for this earth, and for each other. So, biggest love to you all. Aloha.
stars are white. Oh yeah. Solar eclipse, can't run, can't hide. The stars are humming, whispering my name, change is coming. I'm feeling that flame, blossom with the cosmos, let it flow. Intention set, now watch 'em grow. New moon, new vibe, new groove. Oh, step into healing, let the stars show. New moon, new vibe, fresh start, go. We're dancing with the cosmos, feel the glow. Write your dreams, pen them in gold. Oh, plant the seeds, let the story unfold. Shadows fall, but they clear the way for brighter nights and a brighter day. Blossom with the cosmos, let it flow. Intention set, now watch 'em grow. New moon, new vibe, new groove. Oh, step into healing, let the stars show. New moon, new vibe, fresh start, go. We're dancing with the cosmos, feel the glow. Write your dreams, pen them in gold. Ooh, plant the seeds, let the story unfold. Shadows fall, but they clear the way for brighter nights and a brighter day. Blossom with the cosmos, let it flow. Intention set, now watch 'em grow. New moon, new vibe, new groove. Oh, step into healing, let the stars show. New moon, new vibe, fresh start, go. We're dancing with the cosmos,